Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Don Hudson. Good to be with you. We are coming to you at a new time, 9:30 in the morning. And as you can see, we are back in the studio after putting together our show basically over Zoom for, I don't know, the past 4 years, going back to the early days of COVID-19. Joining me today, WATE political analyst George Korda. Good to have him back in the studio. And industrial consultant Michael Covington. Good to have him with us as well. Now, right here on Channel 6, you saw President Biden and you saw Donald Trump go head-to-head, first presidential debate. But this was really far from any normal presidential debate that we're used to anyway. No live audience. They muted the microphones. Two of the oldest candidates ever to face off on the debate stage. And President Biden's performance raising a lot of questions about his candidacy.
Relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Now, you'll recall, if you watched it for 90 minutes, the candidates responded to questions from the moderators about the economy, immigration, abortion rights, and as expected, the candidates lobbed personal attacks at each other really repeatedly.
You're the sucker. You're the loser.
So he should apologize to me right now.
Now, the Biden campaign said that the president's raspy voice was due to a cold, and then a few days later they said it was jet lag, even though he had been at Camp David for a week before the debate.
This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent.
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them.
All right, now we caught up with Democratic Tennessee State Representative Sam McKenzie on what he thought of President Biden's outing and the concerns surrounding his health.
President Biden did appear, sometimes, unfocused, and so sometimes his answers weren't all that. But at the end of the day, that was a 90-minute debate. He endured. He maybe had a couple of minutes where he had lost focus, but he regained that focus and continued to press on. And that's what he does as the president.
Representative McKenzie sharing similar thoughts as many Democratic lawmakers in Washington. We also checked in with Republican Congressman, Tim Burchett, on what this debate reminded him of from past presidential debates.
I was shocked that they let him walk out that disheveled and ill-prepared. I think it was very Clinton-esque, and they destroyed him last night. The Clintons had a habit of doing that to their enemies in their own party and elsewhere. And this town is a pretty vicious place, as y'all know, but that was a pretty good indicator. I don't think it could have gone any better for the Republicans.
Both candidates returned to the campaign trail, taking their messages directly to the voters. So now our pundits come in, and I'm going to just something that Representative Burchett just said. Could former President Trump, could he have done better? We'll start with him because most of this will end up about President Biden, but could President Trump done better?
Well, yeah. I have long thought, because I've actually coached candidates and played the opponents to candidates in debate preparation for everything up from city council up to U.S. Senate. And so I watched these with a little different thought, and I thought the first debate in 2020 Trump against Biden did more to undermine and undo Trump, cost him the election, than anything else that happened. I think this debate, he did what he should have done in the first debate, which is to keep his mouth shut and let Joe Biden talk. Now, Joe Biden wasn't in this condition 4 years ago, but still, he didn't let Joe Biden talk.
Right.
And
I mean, a lot of this is about optics, not just what you say, but
yeah, Trump's a shoot from the hip. I'm sure he didn't spend 5 minutes preparing for this debate. And the idea that he won the debate is based only on the fact that Joe Biden did so badly. And when I first saw that there were ground rules that the Biden campaign wanted, which is mute the mics, no audience, I remember thinking, that's actually going to help Trump, and it did.
Right. Sam, Michael, your take on that?
Well, as you know, I've always believed, or for the last several months, I've believed that this whole thing with Joe Biden was elder abuse. There are people close to him that know that he's having these problems. Right. They've known it. When he went on stage, they knew it. Some believe that they sent him out there so he could fumble, giving them time to make a change if they wanted to. No presidential debate has happened this early. So as it relates to Donald Trump, he might not have done a lot of preparation, but he was very well coached. Not one time did Donald Trump speak over Joe Biden. Not one time did he lose his composure, lose his cool. He saw one opportunity to say, I really don't understand what he said. If you want me to talk a minute about what he just said, I didn't understand it. Right. And he doesn't understand it. That was the K-maker. That was the knockout blow.
Now, for both of you, I'm curious, when you saw the debate, were you surprised at how President Biden, I mean, he just had, like I said, he had a couple of those moments where he just seemed to drift off, a little, maybe a mental lapse?
The people who work for him had to suspect or fear or know that was going to happen. They'd have been better off saying on the front end, before any debates were agreed to, we're not going to debate this guy. We don't have enough respect for him to debate. Biden partisans and Democrats would have said, yeah, that's right. He shouldn't waste his time debating Trump. So it's interesting that they put him out there clearly in the condition that he's in. I mean, what are they all sleeping in the White House? And they're not aware of this? But he's now got people, big fundraisers in the Democratic Party saying, we're not going to give any more money if he's the candidate. You've got major newspapers, usually supporting Democrats, saying, you got to get out. But he's lucid enough, I think, to not let them push him out because of his pride.
Now, I saw a report from Yahoo News, from the Business Insider, a couple other places saying that Joe Biden is quietly feeding him lines. In fact, just did with a fundraiser, a mega donor. She had to like whisper in his ear who it was. We're recording this on Friday, so a lot of things could happen before next week. You got George Stephanopoulos is going to sit down with him. Not a live interview, but he's going to tape an interview. He's got probably other appearances. He's going up to Wisconsin. I know that because that battle is really close. What do you think? Do you think that he can overcome this?
No, he can't. He's not going to get any better. Anyone that has dealt with a senior citizen in this condition knows they are only going to get worse. When they put him on at 8 o'clock to do a debate with Donald Trump, they know this man shuts down every single day at 4, 5. They knew it. This was calculated. As George was saying, the donors are playing a role now. What has happened is now Barack Obama has been re-empowered to essentially be president because Joe can only do so much.
Right.
One of the issues here is that Biden has had willing enablers for 4 years watching this decline. And whenever he did one of these gaffes, they call them, just a gaffe. They go, oh, just old Joe. Oh, he does this a lot. He gets things wrong when he speaks. Oh, it's no big deal. Well, every time they did that, they created the environment for the disaster that was his debate because they knew, and they either didn't want to report it or they didn't want to acknowledge it or they didn't want to do something. And now he's in a position where every single thing he says now has to be covered. He just said yesterday, he was at some event, and he said that he was the first black woman to serve with a black president. Well, you can't hide that anymore, and you can't go, oh, that's just Joe anymore.
Right, and a lot of, some of the people on his side were calling it cheap fakes and things like that about these videos. That's probably changed as well. Okay, so the Democratic Party, do they change horses, or is it too late? Will that help them? And if they change horses to the right person, they're going to get all that media coverage and all that bounce. Can that actually help them?
Who is influencing Joe Biden at this point? If Joe Biden is resolute that he is not going to get out, as long as his mind is there enough that he can say, I'm not leaving, no one can do a thing. The money will dry up. Joe's not going to win the election anyway. At this point, people are afraid that he's president right now. Who's on the bench? Kamala Harris? No. Michelle Obama? No. Gavin Newsom? No. The election is lost. Now it's down ballot. It's Senate races. It's House races. That's really what the concern is now, and the flow of the money.
It's kind of funny watching this speculation that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, might take Biden's place. For crying out loud, all over this country, people in neighborhoods, if there's a house for sale in their neighborhood and they see a car with a California license plate, look at the house, they get terrified. Oh no, it's a California. People are leaving California, businesses and people, by the multi-thousands. If you don't believe me, check the cost of a rental truck to move your house from Knoxville to LA, and the cost to move from LA to Knoxville is about 5 or 6 times more, because people are trying to get out of California. They really don't have a bench. And Biden, if he decides he's not going anywhere, there's nothing they can do.
Well, no lack of excitement. I mean, at least there's something to look forward to every day with this particular race. Okay, we also talked a bit about former President Trump last week. The Supreme Court offered up a ruling about some of his legal issues, which could make a difference in the week ahead and the months ahead, even the presidential election. So next, we'll get into that. You're watching Tennessee This Week on 6 News. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. The Supreme Court announcing some rulings in the past week. Presidential immunity for official acts was one of those things that they decided on. Rejoining our panel here with Michael and with George, and I want to get into this. First off, before we get into what it, let's try to explain to people actually what happened from the Supreme Court. What did they actually do? Because some outlets have said, oh, this gives a President Trump or any president, really authority to be a dictator. What did this ruling about immunity actually do?
Well, in looking at the analyses of this, and you get various analyses. This is the end of the world as we know it. I can't even remember the group that did that. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of democracy. That's, by the way, a phrase that's going to wear itself out. Danger to democracy. But the thing about this decision is it looks, but depending on, again, you get partisan reaction, but it looks like the court tried to very finely draw a line between official acts and private acts.
Which is what they said. They said the president should have immunity for official acts.
I don't know
not private acts, but they didn't define it.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. What do you define as official? If you were to do something, or if I were to do something, and we broke the law, the president doesn't break the law? I mean, if a mayor does something in their official capacity that breaks the law, if it can be said in their official, this gives an awful lot of license to elected officials to have an awful lot of power that I don't think the founders intended the chief executive to have. So I think there's going to be a lot of contention in further cases over this to try to figure out, what do you mean when you're saying official acts? Right. Or what do you mean when you're saying private acts? Because if you give an elected official immunity for decisions they make in their official capacity, you are going down a very, in my thinking, very dangerous path.
Michael, do you see it that way? Because obviously presidents are making decisions and saying things about, wars and funding other countries, funding our own countries. Do you see it that same way, or is it?
No, actually I don't. I see it as the Supreme Court said, all of these cases, you were going after the President of the United States. We allow our presidents to do a lot of things. We allow our presidents to call out hits on human beings in other parts of the world, and we allow our president to gather in a special room to watch that assassination with others. How are you going to prosecute a president when we allow our presidents to do that kind of thing around the world? So all this has done is taken all of these cases to the other side of the election. What President-elect Donald Trump decides to do with those cases afterwards, it's what the law will allow.
Yeah, and let's get into that part. How does this impact the cases that haven't actually gotten to a trial or gotten to a courtroom, and the ones that already have?
That'll depend on how it works its way through the courts. But it's also a lot of people look at this very, very narrowly. Trump, this does this for Trump. This is X for Trump. But if it's a Supreme Court decision, it affects presidents going forward. It's a little bit. But But since there is nothing in our world apart from Donald Trump, because everything revolves around Donald Trump. All you got to do, turn on the news. It's all Trump all the time. The idea that this is just him, if you oppose it, well, it's like some years ago there was a controversial, a mayor of Knox County had gotten into some controversial issues. And a guy I was talking to felt very strongly that there ought to be appointments for all these offices like Register of Deeds and such, that they ought to be appointed by the mayor and not elected. So I said, really, you favor that? Yes. Do you favor this mayor making those appointments? And he just stared at me. It didn't dawn on him there'd be other mayors. Right. There are going to be other presidents. And when you push an envelope of power, government exists. Government has two basic functions, survival and reproduction, meaning making myself more powerful. And whatever latitude government has, it will go to that limit and try to take more. That's what worries me about a president being told you have immunity from decisions you make.
Now, I know there were some people talking about, hey, we should go after President Biden for his not securing the border and the repercussions of that. And is that maybe an example? Say, well, now he, based on this court, would then have immunity from some of the things that he's decided or said about that, versus 2 weeks ago when someone wanted to say, hey, we should take the president to court on not doing these things. Does that come into play here?
Well, and my view is that he simply failed. Past that, why prosecute him for failure? That just seems wrong. I don't think any president in our nation's history has been persecuted and prosecuted the way Donald Trump has been. I don't think moving forward that Democrats or Republicans are going to pursue the opposition this way again. It has netted nothing. It has not provided a net gain for the Democrats at this point.
And I think it's going to be the same thing that happened with impeachment. There was one impeachment in American history up until 1998, just one, Andrew Johnson, after the Civil War. And when Clinton was being impeached by the Republicans, I was on this show at the time, and I was asked, what do you think? And I said, what I think is it's going to make Republicans want to get their guy, and Democrats then want to get Republicans' guys. So we've had, what, 3 impeachments since 1998. And there was a move to try to impeach Biden. And there will be a move to try, if Trump gets elected, there will be a move to try to impeach him immediately. So it's a second law of thermodynamics thing. Everything tends towards chaos. I fear that when you start down this road, the speed just gets greater.
Well, this decision's been made, so we can't do anything about that. Does this help one or the other in the election?
Oh, it helps Trump mightily, because now he can just campaign. He doesn't have to worry about any cases coming before the election. He can push everything on the other side.
What about the decision? Sentencing is in mid-September for the New York case. The possibility is they could say you're going to go to home confinement.
Oh, if they can't find something in that New York case that involved an action that took place in his official capacity, I'd be very surprised.
There's a
and really quick
pollster named Frank Luntz, who, when Letitia James, the AG of New York, was saying she might start confiscating Trump's property, he was on some network and he said, if you want to re-elect Trump, start taking his property away, because they have done, look, so much has been thrown at Trump, you can't hurt him anymore. But if you start doing that to him, and you say, okay, now we're going to put you in jail, I think it actually helps him.
We spent a lot of time on that subject. We'll get to some more. Still to come on Tennessee this week. We are looking at one of the local races in the August primaries. 2 Democrats, one of them getting some support from an unexpected group. You're watching Tennessee This Week on 6 News, and we will be right back. Welcome back. Some controversy in the race for State House District 15 between 2 Democrats, challenger Dr. Dasha Lundy, incumbent Sam McKenzie. The McKenzie campaign raising some concerns that a group has sent out flyers supporting Dr. Lundy, one with some pro-school voucher positions. The same PAC backs a lot of Republicans. So the first question about this, I guess, this local race is, what does it really reveal about this race? Michael?
Well, Dr. Lundy was finishing her first term on county commission, and decided, based on a calling, a vision, some indication in her life that she needed to challenge the incumbent in this race. And that was the sum total of it. And you look at her website, it essentially says the same thing. So I would imagine Representative McKenzie is concerned that his record has not made him safe from this kind of challenge. So I think what will play out is that the individuals who are funding this effort for Dr. Lundy, they'll get what they're looking for. I don't think they'll beat Representative McKenzie, but I think they'll get what they're looking for.
George?
Well, the whole issue of school vouchers, sometimes candidates get supported by groups.
Right.
And the candidates either don't know or they don't want that support. I don't know what the situation in this particular case is. And sometimes they want it, they like it, but they want to have some kind of deniability. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to do this. But the whole issue of school choice is a little fascinating to me in that if you look at, for example, at the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which assesses all 50 states, right, and Tennessee's around 30% proficiency in 8th grade reading. And it was 28% in 1998. And the same thing is true around the country. It's not like this is just Tennessee.
Right.
So there are parents who would love to be able to send their kids to another school, but they can't afford it. And the political establishment is saying, oh no, your kid's going to that school and that's it. You don't have a choice because you don't have the money to make a choice. And the same people that are typically saying, oh, we got to give more opportunity to people with less advantage are saying, oh no, you can't go to another school. And the idea that, well, if you have vouchers and it takes money away from public school, that will harm public education. You can't harm it anymore than it's been producing over the last 20, 30 years. And if anybody wants to argue with me like that, I'll be glad to show them the statistics.
Well, we hear all the time that it will hurt schools. Let's just say a class size is 20. So 20 kids up and go to a voucher paid for school instead of going to the neighborhood, the Smith neighborhood school. Okay, there's one less teacher now, but how does that hurt all the other students and all the other things at the school if they, those, whatever it is per head goes with those kids and now that classroom's not there?
I have interviewed countless Democratic candidates for school board. To a person, they all say the same thing. We cannot afford to lose any more money from public schools, even the money designated for an individual child, because that money is considered a collective for that classroom. And if it's 19 kids or 20 kids, it's still the same need in their minds. I don't know that from an accounting standpoint that will work, but it's a tough sell to say that losing that money would shut down public schools. You won't have the flexibility, but it won't shut public schools down.
Is that a winning issue? Is supporting vouchers for school a winning issue, or does it depend on what area you are running?
Anytime you're giving $7,000 away, yeah.
Well,
anytime you do that, you're going to have people that are going to say, yeah, I'd like to do that. If I can pull it off, if as a collective, 6 parents come together and say, we want to homeschool our kids, there are programs out there. It's kind of like a carpool. All you got to do is get it on autopilot, and it kind of works. You get $7,000 for every one of those children.
Well, to a point Michael just made, homeschooling is burgeoning. Why? In part because of the data I just shared a few minutes ago. Knox County, in the last TCAP scores, it was around 40% reach proficiency. Well, that means 60% aren't. And so parents are looking at this and going, oh, shoot, I don't know that I want this for my kids. So they're homeschooling, they're putting them in charter schools, they're putting them in private. So the public schools are losing students anyway. Public schools are caught, and the teachers particularly, are caught in this Scylla and Charybdis, so to speak, that they're captive to the process, and the process is forcing people to want to take their kids out of the schools.
All right. Thank you very much, George and Michael. We want to thank you for watching. By the way, we want to let everyone know that was R.E.M. saying End of the World.
As we know it.
As we know it. We'll see you next week on Tennessee This Week.
views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Next Star Broadcasting.